Welcome to Leadership Lab. Today, if you are wanting to hear from a business powerhouse, we have one here today. So I am with none other than Meaghan Hastings, owner of the Mortgage Coach, woman of influence, and she's also a mother of two, right? So lots of great things happening here. Meaghan, thank you for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me. I love the name of this podcast.
Oh, awesome! Yeah. Thank you. We appreciate it. And I always love just kind of talking and especially about business and learning about people and their journeys. As they got into business and so forth. For you, what was it? For you that, because I know we were chatting kind of off camera here, but we talked about your journey a little bit on how you got to where you are now. But if you could share with everyone what brought you into the mortgage business and when did you want to say that you wanted to go on your own?
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a windy road. I think what brought me into the mortgage business ultimately is my love of money. But so I started originally doing automotive financing. I was a business manager in a car dealership for several years. And then it was kind of a natural progression to go from financing cars to financing homes. I was recruited into one of the big banks. And what we were speaking about earlier is at some point in my career, I decided to kind of step away from finance and thought that managing a health club would be such a really wonderful, fun, and positive environment. It wasn't. And I really missed finance, so I came back into the mortgage space. And at that point, I transitioned to the broker channel, which I love. So I've been in this channel since now 2008, I think.
Awesome. Yeah. And then do you have, so when you got into that and then what was it that kind of got you to be like, hey, I've got to go on my own? Like, because you were RBC and all that. And then like, what was it? They're like, hey, I think I can do this and I really need to do this.
Yeah. That's an interesting question because it's going to loop back to how I ended up in the health club industry. So when I was a mortgage agent, there came a point in my career where I was looking for more community and culture and involvement. And I had approached the brokerage that I was at to try and bring this in, and it didn't work out for whatever reason. So I actually started looking at other brokerages to join, just as an agent, and had a pretty clear list of things that I wanted. And a big piece of that was being surrounded with, a positive environment and people that were aspiring and we could work together and influence each other. And so while looking for another brokerage to join, I finally sort of came upon the conclusion that I know what I want and how I want to be surrounded, and I should just build it for myself. So then that's sort of how that started, and then the Mortgage Coach was born.
Love it. I think clarity is such a huge thing in life, and I think, I'm sure you've noticed that a lot of people I find don't really have that. And how important do you think that your vision of what you wanted, what your workplace was going to be, and you're just like, I'm going to create this. Like, I love that you did that. Like, how important do you think that is versus, say, how most people are today?
So I think it's actually one of the most important things is being really clear about what you want things to look like, but not being stuck on how you're going to get there. Right? So if you're too preoccupied with that, then you might miss an opportunity. But if you're really clear on what like that future self-image is and what it is you're working towards, especially if you can, write it down and keep it really clear, then you'll find that all these small things start happening, your subconscious starts working, and before you know it, if you have it written down, you'll be able to read that, future self and realize, oh my gosh, I'm actually in this space. Now I need a new future self. So it's everything to me.
Who is that? Who's the future self?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I'll keep it vague, but our next sort of stage of growth is going from provincial to national and just growing out bigger with some, sub brokerages and bigger teams. So continued growth.
So a little bit of a caveat here to the question I was going to ask you, but so how important is it for you, because that's part of your vision, all those things. How long are you talking to your future, or talking about your future self, or thinking about your future self before that kind of starts to materialize?
I don't know that I put a time frame on it. I know when I originally worked on the self that I'm kind of living in now, it's this exercise called Winner's Image, where you really define out what you as a person want to be in the future. It wasn't connected to a timeline. It was just, that's when it is. Mm-hmm. I don't think I put a time frame in it.
keep going at it. Keep going at it. Yeah. Don't give up. And then you eventually have it. Right.
Yeah. I think too, like if you put something like, oh, this is my 5-year goal, it often takes away the urgency from it too, right? Well, it's 5 years in the future. That's so long. Whereas this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then you just focus on making it happen. It'll happen faster, I think, than what you would otherwise do.
100%. I've been training my team in the last little while, talking about impossibility thinking. And impossibility, because it's not really impossible. It's just that we think it's impossible, or we think it's so far out, so we don't really get inspired from it.
Yep.
And like you say, if it's 5 years, how can you get inspired 5 years from now? You get inspired of 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, but it's very hard to inspire yourself. And that's why I think a lot of people, January 1st, or you talked about your fitness, your fitness journey, right? A lot of people, what we know, they start with New Year's resolutions in January, and why don't people hit them is because that's still 12 months.
Yeah.
12 months is a long time.
You can always catch up, right?
Never catch up.
We can catch up there, but
just
do it now.
So we did this exercise, which was pretty interesting, and it was interesting for me too. So we said, okay, what would be a goal that you think is too far out of reach right now? What would have to happen for that to happen sooner?
Yeah.
And when you actually do it, and then go, well, what people, places, resources, things do I need to get into place for that to happen? All of a sudden, like you said, that urgency picks up, and then you get there way faster because you realize, wow, this isn't impossible. This could actually happen. But I think the challenge for a lot of us is we just don't map that out, which is such a key part.
Yeah, when you reverse engineer it, it can be fairly easy.
Yeah.
I think too, when people think too far ahead with a goal, then they think of a really big goal, they automatically kind of self-edit, right? Because it's a big, oh no, I can't do that for whatever reason. Make the goal and then stop yourself from editing yourself to something smaller.
Yeah, reduce to the ridiculous,
Yeah.
right? Like, because if I just do this daily, can I do that? Yeah, I can do that. Well, if you do that and stack that daily, it's going to add up to this in 30 and 90, and it's so exciting when that happens. I love that you said that. Now, we have something similar in the sense that we both made a big career shift, kind of later in life, right? So like when a lot of people would be like, I'm just going to ride with what I'm doing. What was that like for you to be able to go on your own? In 2019, you said you went on your own and all those things. What was that like at that point, at that stage of your career?
Exciting, I guess. So I don't do a lot with expectation. So while I have like goals and things I want to accomplish, I don't have an expectation of how it's going to look. So kind of similar to what we were talking about, like just little pieces started falling into place. I actually wasn't ready to do it when I opened the brokerage, because there's this process that, with licensing all those things. Mm-hmm. And when the opportunity actually came up to make that jump, I actually wasn't a licensed broker at the time. I was an agent. And I had spoken to my colleagues around me, and they're like, we had planned it for later in the year. And so why don't you just open it now? I'm like, well, I don't have my license now. So we actually ended up, I got my brokerage license the day I was writing my broker license. So one of my colleagues actually stepped in as principal broker for a few months so that it could open then, which I'm so thankful for, because if I had put it off till I was actually ready, who knows what would have happened, right? Like we could have got distracted with something else or talked myself out of it. Like any number of things would have happened. I might not be here. So just jumping on the opportunity when it came up and doing it. So it looked crazy is what it looked like, because I wasn't even ready.
I love it. We have a saying on my team. We call it GTL, which is not gym, tan, laundry. It's actually go, then learn.
Yeah.
And because I think we always need to know everything. And so when we're bringing new people into our business, into my team, they don't know anything, and they feel like, I got to become a master of the product. I got to know how to do this.
Yeah.
I need to know how to say the words. I know how to do a plan, all those things. And I'm like, no, because you'll be an expert, and we have a lot of product experts who make zero money. Why? Because they have the fear of reaching out. They have the fear, like all the most important things of connecting with people and all that stuff. So it's like, go. You'll figure it. We'll teach you everything as those instances come up, and then you'll learn, and then you're gonna be so much further ahead than the person who sat there reading the book the whole time.
Yeah, everything's figure outable, right?
Yeah, so huge. I love that. So you did the shift. I did a shift too. I was late 30s. I mean, I didn't want to say that we were later in life. We're not later in life, but when most people kind of they are where they are in their career, they're not going to make too much of a shift. What would you say to someone who's in that stage where they think, I don't have a lot, I can just ride out now. I can't make any changes. I'm too old, or things like that. What would you say to somebody who wants to maybe they have that inkling to do business and take a shot? What would you say to them?
Yeah, so I mean, I think everyone should just honestly do what they want to do, and don't do the things they don't want to do. So I think, yeah, this, later in life, it's too late for me or whatever. I don't subscribe to that, obviously. And there's so many people that are, they're well known, like Vera Wang, like she became a really successful designer later in life. There's a ton of people that became successful later in life. And why discount the rest of your future? Or why discount, continue doing something you don't want to do when you could just do something you do want to do? So,
yeah.
I don't know, just do it.
Kind of insanity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you and I are kind of similar because we both build, like I'm in the financial services business.
Yeah.
You obviously, but I'm in insurance and investment. You're in the mortgage space, and you're growing a team. You mentioned going from, local to, from provincial to national, all that type of stuff. How many people on your team now, by the way?
We're about 85.
85. Okay. And then what are the attributes that you look for in a candidate coming in to your team?
It's evolved over time. Ultimately, I look for at the person, if they're a fit as far as like culture and values and beliefs. It's something I often struggle with because it's very common sometimes to always go after maybe a high producing agent, but when it comes to culture and values and work ethic or how they collaborate, they might not be a fit. So sometimes there's this balance where you have to let people go or not, try and recruit someone who's a higher producing agent. But it's really about the human, the person. We have a really, really collaborative environment within the mortgage coach. So agents help each other. There's a belief that, when everyone wins, when someone wins, we all win, which ultimately comes back to, the more productive or successful each agent is, collectively, we all earn more, right? So there's not this competition with each other within the brokerage. So finding agents that are also of that same mindset is the most important, quite honestly. So it's someone who has a really, not necessarily negative, but it's just a different way of working where they're always hyper competitive with each other and not in sort of a healthy way, might not feel a fit with us.
How do you find those? Like, we're almost identical in that sense. Like, I think that we have the same culture, we have the same values that we try to bring in, and that's one of the things we pride ourselves on in our team. What do you find when you're sitting with people? How do you identify that? Because everybody looks great across the table when you're meeting them and they say maybe what you want to hear. How do you identify that in your process?
Yeah, so I think a big part of it is attraction, like attracts like. So the more we're going out and being completely authentic about who we are, then we should naturally, in theory, attract those people that are also like that. Whereas if we're kind of going out not being who we truly are, we're going to attract a different person who we don't necessarily isn't a fit. So I think a big piece of it too is when I am doing, an interview or meeting an agent for the first time, it's not really like a typical interview. Like I want to just talk to the person, get them know them as, again, like a human, so that it's not those cookie cutter interview questions that they can be faked or put on that mask. So if you're just having a conversation with them as a person, then who they really are should kind of shine through.
Yeah.
In theory.
Yeah. Never 100% foolproof, yeah. But yeah, no, I prescribe the same thing. I always say to people after it's kind of over, they're like, this is a little bit different. And I'm like, yeah, it's because I'm really trying to find out, first of all, would I want to buy from you? And second of all, like if you were trying to approach me with something, would I feel like I would be comfortable with that? Secondly, do I want to work with you? Because do I feel we have a family?
Yeah.
And we talk about that in our process. I'm like, we have a family, and I'm very guarded of who I bring into that because, like you say, you have one bad seed that goes in and just can blow it all up and change that culture, change what it is. It's something you've really been taking a lot of pride in. You had a vision.
Yeah.
You were in the the fitness club, and then you wanted to change to this, and you went and created it. And it's something you want to protect, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm sure it's similar for you as well. Like in our industries, like reputation is everything, whether it's with, your clients or colleagues, or for us, like our lenders. So if we have an agent that is not really a fit and they're dealing with our lenders and connections, then like that could sever that relationship. So it's super important.
Yeah, super important. And so when you wake up every day now, like you got that vision, where you're going longer term, all those things. Do you wake up every day going, we need to find more clients, need to build the volume, or do you wake up every day going, I need to find more agents?
Agents. So for me, when I made that switch from agent to principal broker or broker owner, like to me, our agents are my clients. Like they're who I'm there to serve. Mm-hmm. And I still have a book of business, which is hopefully like another agent helps me with that. So yeah, to me, it's all about focusing on the brokerage, the agents. How can I be of service to them? What can we provide? What do they need? So it's really agent centric.
Yeah, same. Yeah, that's interesting. It's a shift, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because you were a personal producer, you were an employee, even in the mortgage space with RBC, you were doing that for so long. It's very hard to turn that off. What sort of challenges did you have, or did you have any challenges when you were transitioning to that, agent to broker?
I think I made the switch before the brokerage. So within my previous brokerage where I was an agent, I kind of started building a bit of that community already. So we had like our own little group that we would bounce ideas off of. Agents would often come and ask me questions. So it's kind of stepping into that position before I officially stepped in the position.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the biggest shifts, though, was realizing that not everyone, like that others didn't necessarily see me as an agent anymore, because I still kind of felt like, oh, I'm your colleague. And they're like, yeah, no, you're not. So that was kind of a bit of a shift.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's different, right? But then once you're doing it, it's so good to know that, hey, these are the people I'm trying to serve, and you're there for them. And I find for me, I fell in love with being able to help people get to a different place in their career and having a hand in that, and then watching them excel and get whatever they want. And that's a big part of leadership, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So for those out there that say, hey, I don't want to babysit, or I don't want to build people, I don't want to pour into people, I just want to do my own thing, what would you say to them?
Oh, that's funny. So we hear that a lot in the mortgage space, whether it's broker owners, whoever, that I don't want to babysit. I don't call it babysitting. I actually love that part. So when I was an agent, I really loved first-time home buyers because they're excited, right? It's their first home. It's a big deal. And it's a very similar energy from a new agent, right? When they're excited, everything's new. It's their first deal. So it's always very positive and happy. So I actually loved that piece of it. And so we've set up the brokerage in a way that supports newer agents or agents that want to grow and continue and learn. So I think when you are running against somebody who they have that I don't want to babysit mindset, they maybe don't have the systems and processes and the company set up to support people that way. Yeah. So it's a drain off of them personally. So we've set it up as we grew. I needed to basically clone myself over and over so we can continue supporting people. But yeah, I mean, I love that piece. So if maybe that's not the role for them, if that's how they feel.
Yeah, it's true. We're very similar in that way. I find people, when I made this change, a lot of people said to me, why did you choose this company versus, why did you go here versus say here, where you could be, just work with high net worth, all these things. And, the biggest thing for me was that I wanted to be able to tangibly see I was helping people, but I wanted to build a business from day one. I didn't want to have to, work with somebody else and then maybe, move it on. But here you have a lot of opportunity where I just love pouring into those people and giving them, and when they have the same opportunity that I can help them get the same thing, like you're empowering your people to go and do it and clone yourself. I love that. And that's the biggest reward you can possibly get. Yeah. And when you can always go back to having your first deal, like, what you felt like in your first deal, and then you go back and help them get their first deal. And they're like, it's being able to live that same excitement over and over again. Yeah. It's very rewarding, right?
Yeah. And seeing that progression is really amazing. Like we have agents who, their first deal, like they're just a ball of nerves, right? Everything's just like so high anxiety. And now, those agents are mentors to other new agents. And they're like, oh my gosh, they're so stressed. I'm like, they're like, I was like that. I'm like, yes, you were.
Yeah. That's good. So when they're mentors to other new agents, how does that work in there? Is that creating a small team for them as they're growing in there within the agency, or how's that work?
Similar but different. So we have team environments where it's a team leader they recruit and bring in.
Yep.
A mentor is similar in that they're there to support the agent, but the agent will kind of cycle out of their mentorship, right?
Okay.
So it's kind of a more transient.
I like it. Love it. Love that culture. That's great. I find that most people had someone along their journey that inspired them. That really was the one thing that set them into motion. Who or what would have been that for you?
Yeah. I think there's been several people throughout my career that have been inspirational in different ways. I have a great business partner we've worked together in various industries for probably 30 years or close, maybe not, 27 years, a long time. I think we inspire each other at different points. And there's definitely some big, great women in leadership that have been inspirational. But I think it's funny about people that inspire other people. For me, anyway, often it's someone that I might not even know personally, but who I see them in the industry and how they present themselves and carry themselves or handle different situations is very inspirational or aspirational.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of people from a distance that, that you follow them enough and thought leaders or different things like that. You're like, okay. And there's little things that I've taken, if it's from a podcast or something that I'm following, quite religiously, that I'm like, it's how I start my routine every morning. Like I'll go out and I'm listening to that same podcast, sometimes many times the same one, because I find I take different things from it and kind of I'm in a different place to receive it. And it adds to what I can do myself, which is pretty huge. Yeah.
Sometimes it comes back to that future self where it's like, I want that characteristic from that person. And I maybe want more of this person. And that kind of all builds into, who you want to become, right?
Yeah. It's so huge. So huge. What would you say what was your aha moment? When did you kind of say, this is going to work? I'm going to do this. And
I don't think I've had it yet.
No, yeah.
No, I used to like, is this working? I don't know.
Yeah. It's like it's as you go and you're tackling it. Okay, I love it. Yeah, it's funny when in my corporate career I had we always caught this thing like you knew when one of the people on the team had their aha moment. You're like, okay, I got it. I have my aha moment in corporate, and then now in this business on our own, it's like, okay, I got this now. Like I'm no longer doubting, because when I think people start their business in anything they're doing, no matter what industry they're in, if it's in the mortgage business, if it's in the insurance and investment business, if it's whatever business they're doing, there's so much doubt that comes with it. Mm-hmm. So much doubt. It's like, did I make the right decision? I'm seeing these people still be comfortable, and they're not going through the same challenges I am. But on the other side of that is so much reward, so much upside, so much growth, so much that I love, that it was like, okay, now any of those thoughts, they don't ever creep in anymore. So I kind of had that aha moment for where that doubt and all those things, like, did I make the right decision? Like I don't have that anymore. I think it's there. And so I kind of look for that for, on my agents on my team, like when does that happen for them?
Yeah.
Because I know they're constantly doubting when they're new.
True. So I don't think I ever doubted like the path, like what I'm doing, because I just love it so much. But I think that there might always be this little bit of like, who am I, right? Where do I get off doing this kind of thing, for lack of a better word? But I heard something recently, because it linked back to, it was like imposter syndrome, right? Where people like, who am I? I shouldn't be doing this. But the perspective was really interesting, because if you don't have that, then you're not growing. There should always be this little piece of, I don't know what I'm doing, or who am I? Because if you don't have that, then you're kind of stagnant. So I love that sort of take on it. So I think I always have that little piece of, who am I? But now I no longer see it as imposter syndrome. It's like, that means I'm trying new things and growing.
You're leaning new things. Love it. That's so good. It's so important too. Yeah. So important. I feel I've shared earlier that I felt like in my corporate career, I got about 5 years where I felt I knew everything, and I just kind of went with the flow.
That's dangerous.
And it's so dangerous. And I look back now, because I spend so much time on personal development here, that I look back and go, what was I doing for those 5 years? Like, that was crazy, right? Yeah, I did well, but I didn't grow, right? So it's so huge to do that. So what are some of the things that you do personally to help you with your mindset? Like, how do you keep the engine revved?
Yeah. So I think I'm naturally overly optimistic. But I have business coaches, mindset coach at various times. I'd like to say I read a lot, but in all honesty, I buy a lot of books and don't necessarily read them all. I read a lot of back covers.
Yeah.
Is what I do.
Yeah. That's really good. I'm gonna come back to that.
Yeah. That podcast, whatever. So I think it's just a constant feeding and talking to people, right? That they're either a few steps ahead or have similar mindset. It's being like surrounded with people that have that inspiration as well.
Yeah, good associations. So you mentioned podcasts. Is there one in particular? What's your go-to?
Yeah. So one of my coaches that I had before, Hannah Khan, she has one called Possibilities, which I listen to often. There's the Mel Robbins one. There's not one podcast I listen to consistently all the time. I find like someone will send me, an episode and I'll listen to that episode, but I kind of 1 or 2 episodes of each one and pop around. It's kind of whatever resonates at the time.
Mm-hmm. Whatever, wherever you're at, what do you need? Yeah. I kind of do the same thing. Yeah, that's good. Now, you have a personal, like you do personal development coaching. Mm-hmm. How did that happen?
It's funny you bring that. I always forget that actually. So it originally started. I just wanted to be a better leader, so I wanted to have like more tools in my tool belt to help the agents to continue to grow. And so I took one coaching certification, and then I thought, well, why have one when you can have 2? So I ended up taking both kind of simultaneously at the same time. But it was really just to be better at what I'm doing.
And helping them, and, equipping yourself to be better for the team and everything else. Yeah. That's where I find a lot of people. When you're teaching it and you're doing it, you happen to build yourself a lot more. The teacher's always learning more than the student, right?
Yeah. So it was really interesting along that journey to exactly that. You can identify or witness things that actually would be triggering, or why am I responding this way to this conversation? So you kind of give yourself a little bit more neutrality and distance to then be able to respond and help somebody in a way that's actually helpful, as opposed to making it about you and your ego.
Yeah, it's funny because one of the things we do in building people on our team is because we train the team every week, and we'll integrate. I will empower some people on the team to run some of the training. And if I find, I'll look at it. If I think that they need to pick up their socks a little bit in a certain topic, I'll give them that. And they always ask me, they'll text me, I don't know enough about that. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're going to be. I know that you're not going to go up there and bomb, because you're confident and you want to make sure you're delivering value. So you're going to do the work on it, and they do, and they come up and then they go, so glad that happened.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's why I did it.
That's one of the best ways to learn, right?
Yeah.
Is teach somebody else.
Yeah. So I always know that despite the class, like they'll get value from it, but the person who instructed is the one who got the most out of it. So, so a lot of people out there have big disbelief. You're working with personal development, you're helping people in business, you're bringing your people into your business, all those things. What would you say to them?
Like personal disbelief?
Yeah.
So we do the future self-image exercise a lot, and with new agents, and then annually with our goal setting. So that a lot can be pulled out of that, and kind of getting to the root of what that disbelief is. So I think it's important to figure out where it comes from, and what is it really? Because often it's not necessarily disbelief. It might be fear of judgment. It's often fear of judgment, really, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, when it comes down to
fear. It always comes down to fear, really.
Yeah. What are other people going to think? Yeah.
Yep. And then, going through that exercise of kind of trying to give pieces of that up until they can show up authentically. Right?
Yeah. We say I tell my team all the time, the biggest killer of dreams is worrying what other people think, because they're not really thinking about you. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And there's kind of that stat out there that people that are kind of, when they know the end is near in their life, and they're kind of on that, I don't want to say their deathbed, but they know it's near. They think about, they wish they They wish they, spent more time with loved ones. They wish they took more shots because they didn't realize that what they thought were risks weren't really as big a risk as they thought. And they wish they didn't care what people thought because it didn't really matter anyway. Most of those people are still not in their life later on. And even if they are, they probably weren't thinking of them anyway. Yeah. So it's interesting how we get in our heads.
It's funny because hopefully our parents don't listen to this, but my husband and I have been saying recently, sometimes when parents get older, the filter kind of is removed from them, right? And usually it's like kind of its bone of contention, like, oh, they just say whatever. But that's part of it because at some point they do kind of remove the filter and just say what they want to say, which how great if we all did that. Obviously not offending anybody, but like...
Yeah. It's so true, right?
Yeah, stop caring what someone else is going to think.
Yeah. Just be you.
Yeah.
I had an instance with my daughter a few weeks ago. And so it was actually at the end of school. She always tucks her shirt in. And it drives me crazy. And I said, and she does it in sports. So she plays on basketball and she tucks her shirt. And I say, you don't tuck your shirt in sports. And then she was tucking it at school and she goes, it's okay. And I got thinking to myself, one of the most things I admire most about her, she's just turning 13 on Saturday. She doesn't care what people think. And when I was that age, I did all the time. I was trying to fit in all the time. And so I was walking her to school and I said to her, it came to me, I'm like, oh my God, Brad, like you are. And so I said to her, you know what, sweetie? One of the most things I love about you is that you do not care what people think. I said, so you go be you. You do. She goes, thank you, Dad. Thank you for realizing that. And I was like, how dare you ever tell her to untuck her shirt because it's what people think. Like, and you're telling people all those things, right? So yeah, sometimes we learn from them a lot.
We've had something similar with our own daughter as well. So she has an interesting fashion sense, and I spent a lot of time trying to change that until I had a similar realization that just let her be who she wants to be. So now I personally wouldn't wear what she's wearing, but that's fine.
Yeah, that's it. It's funny, right? Now you mentioned your kids. You've done all this as a mom at 2.
Yeah.
What's Meaghan's schedule?
So I'm up at about 4:45, and sometimes that's filled with different things. So I originally got up really early in the pandemic because we were home with kids, and the only time to get time to myself was to get up super early, and I just never gave up the habit. I love it. So sometimes it means like getting up and working out. Often it means getting up and I start working, and then I have to pry myself back away from the laptop to get ready. But so usually a few hours in the morning where I have it to myself, and then the kids get up, breakfast, all that stuff that happens. And then, into the office for the day, which could be something like this or a day in the actual office. And evenings are typical, like dinner, tutoring, the various stuff. And again, sometimes I really do love my work, so it's are you coming home because we have dinner and tutoring?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty typical schedule, really.
Yeah. So for people some moms that are out there that are not sure they can do some of those dreams or go reach some of the stuff they're looking to do, you can do it all if you schedule it and schedule what's important, right?
Oh, 100%. I think support is important, but so we had talked earlier about networking groups that we were both a part of at different times. And when I was originally a founding member of one of these networking groups, my oldest was only 6 months. So luckily my mom would come down, it was like a 7 a.m. meeting. So she would come down, I would have to get up at like 5, feed the baby, go to the networking group, come back, feed the baby, go to the office for 3 hours. So everything's 3-hour increments when you have a baby. And I did that twice for these networking groups, which is fantastic. But it's having support in place, and part of it also comes back to not doing things that you don't want to do. So I had someone who would do our laundry, which was amazing. Having a great husband that picks up the slack in other ways, but you really can do it all. It just might not look like what you think it's going to look like.
Yeah, 100%. I think if you work with intention, and you pre-plan, you work with intention. A lot of people realize the day goes on, and obviously it's 4:00, and they get more done between 4 and 5 than they did like the previous 6 hours, because they were distracted, all these things. But if you just don't work with distractions, you can get a lot done. Yeah, you get a lot done. This has been great. I've really enjoyed this. Before we go here, where else can people find you and see more of you and your brokerage?
Yeah. So we're on the internet, themortgagecoach.ca. Also on Instagram at the MTG Coach, and I'm on Instagram at it's Meaghan Hastings.
Awesome. This is great. Meaghan, I really enjoy this. This has been, I love your story. I love what you've done. I think a lot of people will connect with that and resonate with that. And then our similarities in what we're trying to build in our business, I think has been really interesting for me to hear how you go about that. So I really appreciate you joining us today. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thank you.